Okay, let's break down the 1994 Montreal Expos. This was a team that was 74 and 40 at the time when the 1994 baseball season came to an end. The Montreal Expos that year had the best record in the National League when the season came to an end, and Strat-O-Matic did they included them in their 1990s special teams series set. So let's get right into the Expos offense. First, I'm going to show you the leadoff hitter, Marquise Grissom, his on base chances. You see his numbers right there. Both of those numbers check out well above average. Now, according to the Strat-O-Matic book, this is where the lineup changes a little bit depending on whether you're facing a righty or a lefty. So I'm going to break down Cliff Floyd and Rondell White, as they have Cliff Floyd as the first baseman against right-handed pitching, batting second, and Rondell White playing right field, hitting second against left-handed pitching. And you see their on-base chances right there. You can see Cliff Floyd's number is a little bit low, and I could tell you in the past when I've played with the '94 Expos, I don't put Cliff Floyd second, but I'm going off of the way they have it in the Strat-O-Matic book. Now, 3 and 4 in the lineup was pretty much set in stone, whether you're facing a righty or lefty. I'm first going to show you all of Moises Alou's numbers. First, you see his on base chances; those are just excellent numbers. And now we take a look at his hits with multiple base advancement. I might one day have to just sit down and do a video on Moises Alou's cards because he was just always a rock solid Strat-O-Matic player. He was just really a great player to have on your team. He was always good at single two asterisks, doubles, hits with multiple base advancement. Always good on base percentage numbers. Not to mention he's always a very reliable fielder. So Moises Alou, once again, just knocked it out of the park in 1994. Now let's take a look at the cleanup hitter, Larry Walker. You see his hits with multiple base advancement. Those numbers check out pretty good. Now I'm going to go a little deeper into the lineup and show you Will Cordero. Now the Strat-O-Matic book has Cordero hitting sixth against left-handed pitching, and he drops to seventh against right-handed pitching. And you see his numbers with multiple base advance by a base runner. See those numbers check out pretty good for Will Cordero. Next, I'm going to show you the catcher platoon, and there are their on base chances right there. So you got a pretty solid platoon at catcher, which is nice. Now I'm going to show you the third baseman, Sean Berry. Now, according to the Strat-O-Matic book, once again, they have Sean Berry hitting eighth right before the pitcher versus both lefties and righties. I actually hit him a little bit higher against left-handed pitching, but nonetheless, we'll go by that. These are your numbers out of your eight hitter for Sean Berry for multiple base advance by a base runner. So those numbers check out very nicely. And then the last guy that I'm going to show you, a regular in the starting lineup, everyday second baseman, Mike Lansing. I'm going to show you his on base chances. You see those numbers are pretty good. I remember in the past playing with the '94 Expos. I think I have used Mike Lansing as my number two hitter against left-handed pitching and have him down at the bottom of the order against right-handed pitching. But you can see his on-base numbers check out pretty solid for a guy who, according to the Strat-O-Matic book, is locked in hitting seventh against both lefties and righties. So as we take a look at the Expos' overall offense, here's how I graded them out. And you see right there, they came out with an overall rating of a 4 out of 5, as I gave them a 4 out of 5 in all the categories. None of the categories that I put grades on, that's on base percentage, middle of the order, and last righty lefty mix, depth or versatility in the lineup and on the bench. I couldn't see myself given the 94 Expos any fives in any of those categories. But overall, it is a very good offense. I do like the righty lefty mix in the lineup. I like the fact that your three hitter Moises Alou is a righty. Your cleanup hitter Larry Walker is a left-handed batter who's not impacted by facing left-handed pitching, so that's a plus. So overall, the '94 Expos came out to right about where I thought they would be, as a 4 out of 5 or a very good offense. Now, let's get into the defense on the '94 Expos, and this is where we run into a little bit of a problem. When you look at the middle infield, you are pretty solid at second base with Mike Lansing. Granted, he's a 3, which I'm not crazy about, but he does have a very, very low E rating for second base. And E14 at second base is excellent. And I'll get into more of that later as I look at the overall E ratings in the defense. But you can see at shortstop, you're carrying a 3 and an E33 at shortstop, and that's a tough carry when you have two threes at shortstop and second base. It makes it almost impossible to turn a double play on the fielding chart. And an E33 at shortstop, the chances are very high that you're going to roll an error if you happen to roll a split, and then you have to roll the D20 to, or you have to roll the two D6s to see if Cordero made an error. So the middle of the order, or excuse me, the middle infield defense for the '94 Expos, I had to just grade them as just average, 2.5 out of 5. The outfield defense, I'm going to show you here, left to right. Left field, set in stone. Moises Alou, you're very good there. Center field, set in stone, excellent there with Marquise Grissom. And in right field, you've got Larry Walker in right field against right-handed pitching. And against left-handed pitching, Larry Walker moves to first, and Rondell White plays right field. So you could see you are pretty solid in the outfield there. So no real holes defensively there. So I graded them out at a 4.5. It's very rare that whatever outfield combo you play, you got either ones or twos. At all three outfield spots, so that is a big plus. And the '94 Expos needed that score to help their overall defensive score. Now let's look at the E ratings on this team. First, the bad news. Well, I already went over shortstop and Will Cordero. You have Sean Berry at third. That is too high of an E rating at third base. Right field, even though Larry Walker and Rondell White are twos, both of them have pretty high E ratings, so not particularly crazy about that. And I'm not crazy about the E ratings that you have at first base, whether you're playing Larry Walker or Cliff Floyd. So I did have to hit the '94 Expos over the head a little bit when it comes to the E ratings, and I think I gave them actually a little bit of a break now that I look at it. I gave them a 2.5 out of 5. I probably could have gotten away with giving them a 2, but I think what put me at just getting them to just average is the fact that you are well above average at second base with Mike Lansing, who's only an E14. At second base, that's an outstanding E rating. And you're solid in center field with Grissom. And depending on what combos you play, the E rating at first base does get a lot better with Cliff Floyd when he's at first base against righties and Larry Walker is in the outfield. So my overall defensive score for the '94 Expos comes out to a 3.2 out of 5. So let's take a look at the starting pitchers now for the '94 Expos. Let's start with the ace, Ken Hill. You see his on base chances right there. This was really one of Ken Hill's better cards. Ken Hill was a solid pitcher for a number of years in both leagues, pitching in both the American and National League. I could not give his card a perfect ace rating of a 5 out of 5, but I did give him a 4.5 out of 5. I do like Ken Hill's card a lot from 1994. Now let's take a look at the starting rotation depth. I'm going to show you Pedro Martinez, Jeff Facero, and Kurt Reuter. Let's take a look at their numbers right there. You can see Pedro Martinez, very solid numbers out of your number two starter. And then you see Facero's and Reuter's numbers. Those numbers check out pretty good. They are obviously driven by Pedro Martinez, who, frankly, lots of times when I play with the 94 Expos and I'm sitting down to play a 7 game series, there's been a number of times where I've just used Pedro Martinez as the number one starter. I gave the starting rotation depth a score of a 4 out of 5. So the 94 Expos starting rotation grades out at a very solid 4.2 out of 5. Now let's take a look at the bullpen. You got John Wetland. You see his numbers right there, his on base chances. It's a pretty solid card out of John Wetland. I'm not crazy about the fact that he has a couple of home run chances against left-handed batters, but pretty solid against right-handed hitting. No real power there, even though his on-base chances go up just slightly. So I had no problem giving John Wetland a very solid score, a closer score for your ace. I gave him a 4 out of 5. Now let's take a look at the bullpen depth. I'm going to show you the numbers for 4 guys here. I'm going to show you the numbers for Mel Rojas, Tim Scott, Gabe White, and Jeff Shaw. Now, you see their numbers right there. A couple of things about Rojas and Shaw, a couple of things which I don't like. Even though their on base numbers on the surface seem pretty good. I don't like the fact that Rojas and Shaw have a tendency to give up home runs against left-handed batters. I don't like it when I bring relievers in and they've got home runs just sitting right on their card. So that is going to hurt the bullpen depth score. Tim Scott is a interesting reliever. He's an interesting option that you could use out of the bullpen. He's a right-hander who is very good at getting left-handed batters out. So that's an interesting option right there. And you can see his numbers against right-handed batters, goes up a little bit, but that's a nice option to have out of the bullpen. And let's take a look at Gabe White. You see his numbers, they're a little bit high. Gabe White really isn't a guy who you bring in a situation where you are really in a tight game or whatever. Gabe White is a guy who I always kind of used as, if the game's in extra innings and I've used up a lot of my other options. So overall, as far as the 94 Expos bullpen depth, it's definitely not a good enough bullpen to approach a 4 out of 5 rating. I settled on the bullpen depth score of a 3.5 out of 5. And the only reason why they scored that high was because I do like the option of Tim Scott out of the bullpen. Yes, his numbers against right-handed hitters is a little bit high, but I do like the fact that he's pretty much lights out getting left-handed batters out. So the overall bullpen score for the 94 Expos comes out at a 3.75 out of 5. So as we look at the 94 Expos, we look at their final scores, you're going to see that they grade out at a 3.8 out of 5. So they don't hit that 4 mark, which is frankly, I think, a very fair score because the 94 Expos, I remember the first time I got the set and I was going through them. On the surface, the cards looked really good. And then I got to playing with them a couple of times. I remember one of the first series I played with them was I set up a 7 game series between them and the 1992 Toronto Blue Jays. And yeah, the offense is good. You've got some solid starting pitching. The closer is good, not great, but the bullpen depth worries me a little bit on this team. You could have some issues in like the 6th, 7th, 8th innings trying to get the ball to Wetland, or if you ever find yourself in a high-scoring game where the bullpen's got to come in early. Not particularly crazy about the bullpen depth on this team. And then not to mention the numerous issues that come up with the 94 Expos defense. So I would say that this team is definitely not good enough to get to that 4 out of 5 mark, which basically puts you as a very good team. I would just categorize the 94 Expos as a good team. It's a team that is very beatable, and it's also a team that can, looking at the other sets, the other National League teams from the 1990s, they could probably hold up against most of the teams from the National League set from the 90s. But once again, overall, I remember being a little bit disappointed when I first started playing with the 1994 Montreal Expos. So that's my analysis on the 1994 Strat-O-Matic Montreal Expos. I thank you all for watching. And my next video, I'm going to stay in the 1990s, but I'm going to switch leagues. And my next video will be a breakdown on the 1998 New York Yankees. Have a good day, everyone.